All right, guys, let's welcome Henry and Tu from Alien Weaponry to the Talk Toomey Podcast here, guys. How are you today?
What's up? We are good. As Henry was just saying, we just wrapped up rehearsals, so we'd run straight home from the band room to get on there for this chat.
Some of us with a shorter drive than others.
I know. I've got the short drive. Hell yeah. I live 10 minutes from the band room.
Henry, why are we letting the new guy, dictate where the rehearsal studio is? Like, he should come to you.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was my choice to move away from the rehearsal studio. It's actually at my parents' house, which is
Nice.
Where it's been for the last 15 years.
Henry, I was reading a little bit about that. Your dad is your dad in the music business, or is a musician? Touring musician?
Yeah, both. He was in bands in the 80s and 90s here in New Zealand. That did fairly well. Just locally within the country. And then kind of moving on from that, he actually worked in studios in Auckland for a little while. So he was a recording engineer.
And Lewis just
a whole bunch of stuff doing that.
Yeah, sorry, I just got home now.
There we go.
Ding, ding.
All right. So how far is Lewis away? Is he like an hour in the other direction?
I
Is that
think
what we're doing?
yeah, he is.
Pretty much.
Might be the
Well,
furthest.
an hour today. It's usually 40 minutes, but everyone was driving like idiots.
Yeah, they literally, Henry's the south, and then Lewis is the north, and I'm bang in the middle.
Right in the middle, man. Well, I do have to say, you guys, obviously, let's welcome Lewis to the show too. The new album comes out March 28th. What's the title?
Ta-da.
There we go. See, I'm not even going to, I've already explained to that I'm not attempting any of these words, but out March 28th, Napalm Records. And, I got the advanced copy of it. I hit play and completely blown away. Like this is already like top 10 record of the year. Like I'm pumped for this album. It's amazing.
Wow, it's early to be jumping on a top 10. I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was listening to it and I was like, man, this has like some Lamb of God vibes, some like Trivium vibes, like something to it. And then I looked at the who produced it and I saw Josh Wilbur produced it. And I was like, there we go, man. Like that dude is a monster producer. So so let's talk about, working with Josh and what that meant to you guys and what that meant to the record.
Man, it was also, the thing with Josh, he actually came quite late to the whole process. We'd actually interviewed quite a few other producers before, and then we didn't even properly interview with Josh. There was just all this chopping and changing going on the label stuff, and with our management. And then there was this kind of last minute, change of plans. How about Josh Wilbur, And we were like, not complaining. I said, if the budget allows for it, then absolutely, let's go with Josh. And so we were on tour in Europe doing a headline festival run at the time, and we'd had 2 phone calls with him. And so we barely even met the guy before, but this was when it was already confirmed that we were working with Josh. Those were 2 phone calls to be like, what's the plan? When are we meeting up? And blah, blah, blah. And so we were I think we were a little nervous going into it because we were we don't even know this guy, is he even going to like us? Are we going to like him? And first time recording an album outside of New Zealand for the band. So luckily, I think it probably took the end of day 1 and we were all like we'd been best mates forever, He was so awesome to work with.
Jokes
just on
cracking were a little bit diabolical. Actually.
Oh man, the jokes
probably
flying
never
on the
be mentioned outside the studio, but it was that kind of throwing down.
That's right. The chemistry was there right away, and then came the realization of the expertise that comes with a producer like Josh Wilbur. And so you've heard the album, the first track off the bat, was the first example of us having our minds kind of melted by Josh's skills. They were 2 songs, 2 demos that we didn't like and we didn't want on the record, but we provided him with everything we'd written, and he was like, all right, riff A, riff C off song 1, riff B, riff D and E off the second one, and he gave him 10 minutes and he chopped it together like some sort of jigsaw puzzle and created what became Crown. And we felt it's such a high energy, high octane song that it opens up the whole album. So honestly, we're working with Josh was
Wilbur.
Oh, dude, yeah, the Wizard Wilbur. It was so good, and we would absolutely love to work with him again. Given the opportunity and the timing on on future records.
What about you, Lewis? What was your your experiences with Josh?
I mean, yeah, basically what Tūranga said, like we all got along really well, which I guess is the main thing. But especially with me and Josh, we did a lot of work on the vocals and the placements and the melodies. Especially, I feel like we really took kind of, more than a second to brush over all of the vocal stuff. And I think it really shows on this album because we've kind of, like dialed some things in.
And obviously, what is the track that Randy's on? Randy Blythe from Lamb of God is on.
He's on the track Honey Far.
Yeah.
We just spent probably about 2 hours just blasting through over and over and over. It's wicked live.
It's kind of the same where I was listening to the album while doing, cooking dinner or whatever I was doing. But I was like, man, this is like a Randy vibe. Then all of a sudden Randy kind of just showed. I was like, oh, there's Randy. So yeah. Lewis, talk about kind of getting the tracks with Randy. Did you actually work with Randy? Did you hang out with him at that point, or was it kind of sent the track off and that's what you got back?
So Tūranga actually messaged Randy. I didn't realize he did that until after he told us Randy was.
Yeah, it was my surprise.
But because Tūranga knows this, Lamb of God are like my all-time favorite band, so I would never in a blue moon even think of asking them to jump on one of our tracks because
right.
I'm a bit too in awe of them. But then, Tūranga came into the studio and he was like, guess what? Randy wants to be on our new song. And I was like, oh, my God. I'm going to freak out a bit. So, that's basically how it happened. And Josh actually went and recorded Randy at Randy's place.
Okay.
Yeah, so they set up a little vocal booth in there and he actually did those tracks because everything was happening so quickly with all the album and the tours and stuff that it was kind of hard for us to get into the same space at the same time. But no, the end result really, I'm super stoked with it.
Oh yeah, like I said, the album crushes. There's something wonderful about a band from New Zealand signed to a German label that just did a tour of the States. Like you guys are truly global. I think that's an amazing accolade for you guys.
Yeah, I mean it's sometimes we do have to just stop ourselves and remind ourselves kind of what the actual reality is of what we're doing. Sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff that it takes that, either someone like yourself saying it or us just stepping back a little bit. But yeah, it's, something we're super thankful to be able to do. Not everyone gets to do it. And, for us, we've got a good few years still to go. So I think we want to make the most of it and do our fans proud and do our families proud.
Yeah, it's wild. Like the New Zealand side of everything. I grew up in the South, or roughly Nashville, Tennessee. You don't know a lot about New Zealand, but it's fun. Like I was telling too when he popped on that I do actually follow him on Instagram, and he's daily kind of giving you history lessons about the culture and everything, and hearing that in the music. That's one thing I loved about Sepultura. That's one thing I loved about Gojira. That's one thing I loved about bands that are able to, even like a Bloody Wood, like they take metal, but they also add their personal influences into it and their environment into it. And I think that's amazing what you guys are doing, what they're doing, and just kind of educating the world, I guess.
Thank you, man. We always appreciate hearing that. And as you said, there's so many bands out there now that have this kind of difference. So I feel like today's day and age has really created an environment where you do see a lot of bands doing really different stuff, because that's what you need to do to stick out from the thousands and thousands of bands that are in the mix with you. So, and it does create some really interesting music, and I will take the compliment. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, like all the other bands you mentioned as well, Gojira in particular, we're all massive fans of. So yeah, it's different, it's new, it makes, it's continuing to move forward in the realm of metal and music in general.
Oh yeah. The one thing that I hate about growing up where I did, roughly Nashville, is like if I was to do that with my local flavor, it would be like metal with like banjos and fiddles and stuff. It's some sort of like bluegrass metal crossover. Like that's no fun, man. I need that tribal stuff. You guys
did actually hear I think it was like a brutal death track the other day.
Yeah,
with a random banjo solo, like smack bang in the middle of the song, and it goes so hard.
Yeah,
it really does.
Definitely. One thing culturally that I've noticed over like even the last 8-10 years is like, the haka, is that am I saying it right? Just like that. What's that?
It's a fantastic movie.
It was just a throwaway comment. It's not that important.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know if I said something wrong. No, I was just saying that, like, within the U.S. is maybe a little bit more. We're seeing like the haka and things like that, and even like the say it Maori. All that culture and stuff. Like we're learning that, and I think you guys are kind of like hitting at the right time, because I've seen so many TikToks and everything over the years of rugby teams getting ready for a match, and they just come out and like basketball and stuff like that. Like I love watching like the haka, kind of just getting that going, man. It looks amazing.
Yeah, there's definitely been an increasing rise in the curiosities and the popularity of things Maori on a global scale, and whether it is the All Blacks or even people like Jason Momoa have quite popularized the haka, because he's always performing them when he's at premieres and stuff like that, and the influence that they've played in huge pop culture cinema, like the second Avatar movie, heavily features strongly influenced creatures and creations based off of things Maori, and kind of like when you talk about with my social media, that's how I think I blew up initially, was because I happened to post a video right in the heat of Maori virality on TikTok, and because there was a huge boom of things Maori online at the time, and there was a very popular song that was trending at the time, and blah blah blah, and so it's great to see. I know some people can get a bit iffy about the concept of viralness online, but it's great to see because it allows people to expand their horizons. It's like you said, Nashville, Tennessee. Why would you ever consume anything Maori ever? It's on the other side of the world. It's totally foreign, and so those sorts of sides of the world being able to be reached with things Maori or of any kind, I think is the benefit there. I think any education on the way other people are can only lead to a better and understanding world in general. It stops the kind of closeted mindset from happening if you are exposed to things that are different. So it's a great trend that and we always say it helps, kind of like with us performing overseas. When we go to Spain and you have the crowd singing in Maori, it's amazing, but it's amazing because it reminds those of us here back home who maybe are feeling the shame and, those here that are affected by the years of colonization that make them not so proud to be Maori, or, not want to be Maori and wish they weren't, and these sorts of things, that outside of the small-mindedness of some New Zealanders, there are people all over the world that love Maori culture for Maori culture, so that it helps those back home who are struggling with their identity to hopefully feel proud, So it's a great trend, and we hope it keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, even the lady in Parliament that kind of busted it out on. I was just like that. That's one way to make a statement right there.
Right.
Tear it up and then go for it, man. That was amazing. Talk about the Kerry King tour, man. That had to have been pretty awesome. Kind of seeing him up there playing, the Slayer tunes and his own tunes and stuff like that every night, man. Going out with him in the States.
Well, I think the funny thing too about the Kerry King tour is like, I think a big reason we ended up having Josh Wilbur is because he had just finished doing Kerry's album that he's touring, because us and Kerry King have the same management. So like our management had been obviously working with Josh already, and I think that's how that thought process came to be. And the tour was awesome because, this is what we've been saying. It's kind of a wild thought, but Kerry King has been a touring live musician longer than any of us three have been alive outright.
Yeah.
So when you are
possibly even close to us three together.
Right. And so when you are invited into that space with someone who's such a legend and has so much knowledge, you'd be silly to not sit back and take notes, and there was so much that you can learn from not just him himself and not just his band members, but also the crew that have toured with him for many years and possibly decades, and all the expertise that we can sort of try and learn from and impart on ourselves and our own crew, and it was really special too because he like specifically invited us to be on that tour, versus like agents and booking agents just doing their job. Kerry had asked to have us on the tour, which was awesome. So we felt really, really honored to be on that tour with him, and they were great guys, and it was a good tour.
Henry, when you guys go out with something like that, I mean, how do the crowds react to you? Do they take a couple of songs to warm up? Are they in right away? Like, how are the crowds with you guys?
I mean, it really depends on where you're at. Some of these shows, it's like an instant explosion. For example, New Mexico was like that. And we're pretty sure it's because there's always a bunch of Navajo that come to those shows. They're super into the band and they know what we're about and they just go for it. But certainly, I think especially with the crowd that comes to Kerry King shows, which I would think are majoritively Slayer fans and probably older fans as well, guys that were into thrash back in the 80s and 90s. So they take a little bit of warming up sometimes, but generally by the last song, we've got at least something happening. We do a wall of death most nights on the last song. So it can be quite tricky with a 30-minute set. You've only got 4 or 5 songs to make it happen. So we get out there and we do what we can. And this tour was all in all, I would say A+, above average for sure.
Nice. Lewis, lyrically on the record, you tackle seems like social media. There's apologize, I don't have, specific songs written down, but I mean, there's one where you're basically, talking about how, things are going to change in a relationship, kind of opening up your heart, kind of throwing things out there, man. Is that tough for you to do to kind of open that stuff up?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, a lot of my lyrics come from I guess what you could consider a bit of a dark place. And, it does require having to, go through and deal with some of those emotions or even just face some of those emotions. So, yeah, especially writing those lyrics out and then listening back to certain songs, it's some of those lyrics and stuff, they make me feel a certain way, whether it be good or slightly, not so good. But I feel like it's always a healing process, even when you're listening back to those lyrics, because it reflects on, where your head was at, and everyone's constantly changing. So a headspace I was in for a song I wrote 3 years ago is going to be different from a headspace I was in from a song I just wrote now. But yeah.
When you're singing about a specific person or specific incident, do you is there a time where you'll sing those live and that person will be in your head, and then maybe, like you said, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, those are just words at that point? Or do you ever have that moment on stage where you kind of fall back into it?
Yeah, well, I always try, and when I'm singing, I'm always trying to, I guess, visualize what I'm singing about, more or less. But yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing about my lyrics too is they're all quite metaphorical. You can kind of gather what the song's about, but at the same time, someone else might interpret it in a completely different way. You know, so I definitely feel like even if the song in 5 years isn't, exactly, applicable to my situation or my life, I feel that, the lyrics are strong enough so that people find value in them and find help in them, no matter, if their situation isn't exactly the same as mine. I feel like they can still relate to that song.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm sure you've answered this question a million times. So if there's someone that can give me kind of the Cliff Notes version on how does a band out of New Zealand kind of get picked up? How did I'm assuming the internet, but I'm just saying, like, how did we get here? I guess, is there a abridged version?
Well, 15 years of fucking shows in tiny local pubs, 25 people.
Just keep playing and don't give up.
Constantly moving forward. Yeah. I don't know. In all actuality, there's a combination of luck and preparation that goes into all of it. We've been incredibly lucky with some of the opportunities we've had, some of the people we've been able to work with, tour with, but also, just being prepared to be able to say yes to those tours. When we started out, it was just me and Lewis, 8, 10 years old, playing, a cheap guitar, cheap electric drum kit, just smashing away. But from there, it developed, and we decided it was something we actually wanted to do for the rest of our life. And we were super thankful as well for our father, who did a lot to push the band forward in the first, I'd say, 10 years of its existence. So, he's been a massive help, and so is, I think, all our family involved, and Tudanga's family as well are super supportive. So there's just having all of that and basically having it all line up. We've just been incredibly lucky in that sense, and I guess that's how it's happened.
Yeah, I actually don't know how we ended up playing the shows we're playing. I ask myself that question quite often.
Like, still don't know how we got here. Yeah. With you guys, with your dad, kind of helping you along in the early days, what are his thoughts now? Like, when you guys are leaving for European tours or leaving for American tours and things like that, like, it's got to be blowing his mind.
Well, yeah, I think he gets FOMO because he's
right?
been touring with us in the past. He used to do front of house sound for us, and then the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 years, he's kind of slowly dialed that back, and he's kind of doing his own thing now. But whenever we're on tour, you can almost guarantee at some point in the tour, we're getting a message from Dad going, "Been watching your live clips. Here's what I think."
You kind of turn down that symbols for 10 dBs or something.
Yeah. And our current front of house sound guy is awesome. And he's been with us for quite some time. But yeah, certainly he's got a slightly different mixing style to our dad. But he still makes the band sound great. And all in all, that's, I think, what people care about, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, Lewis buzzing out there. Well, let's just wrap up on this with new album out March 28th, And then the what's the touring plans? What do we have what coming up next, guys?
Well, after March, currently no idea. As I said, we just come home from rehearsal, so we're about to embark on our first New Zealand headline tour in a long time, since 2020. So it's been a very long time since we've played a home run.
How many shows can you do in New Zealand? Like what's
huge 6? So it's essentially
pushed it to maybe 8.
Right. It's essentially 2 weekends worth of shows, and we get the week off in between, which is always nice too. We get to come home for a few days. But that's right. Depending on when this comes out, that is ending a week before the album comes out. So it's a mid-March tour, and then after that is currently empty. So we're hoping that the powers that be behind the scenes are working tirelessly to get us back on the road somewhere.
We've been told to stand by.
Yes,
we don't know yet. But there's apparently some very cool things.
Vague whisperings of things happening.
Yeah. You gotta love that stuff. The what's the the logistics to get you guys? You guys have gear in other countries, or you guys, do you guys send over guitars? What's the logistics to just get you guys out of New Zealand?
Yeah,
a lot.
Right.
I've got a drum kit in the States,
so
and I've got a drum kit.
We have some gear.
Yeah.
Lewis is very delayed.
I've got kind of a pedal board and then some guitars over in those territories as well. But we still, at the moment, are flying with flight cases. We bring some guitars over. Henry still brings some drums. So it is always a bit of a nightmare at the airport, going, hi, everything's heavy and oversized. Yeah,
or when they try and stitch you up with a carne, that's the other one.
So flying gets kind of tricky. Yeah, and then you got to deal with carnes, which are like a document that says you're not importing things taxless. So there's a few things to deal with on that end, but you always end up looking over at people with like one bag and going, oh motherfucker,
And we were talking about it today, like the irony of always when we're dealing with endorsements, because me and Lewis have been picking up new endorsements lately as the band starts to get bigger, and endorsements that are very generous with what they can provide you and all these sorts of things. And there's always the irony of like when the band starts getting to a point where they actually don't necessarily need it for free anymore is when they start giving you stuff for free. Mm-hmm. But it's fine because now it means like, I just swapped over to ESP for my basses in the past couple of days. And so now it means that instead of traveling with all my basses, which was a lot, and then the airports always get confused. They're like, is that a gun? What is this thing? And it's like, oh gosh. Now I can just,
sticker on it as well.
I know, alien weapon. They see the weapon thing. Like, what is this big long case that looks like a gun case? And so now, you can start getting stuff set up, and as the band expands, it just makes it ever so slightly easier. Even one bag off of the plane every time we go very slowly will make a world of difference. We pay a lot in excess baggage.
Lots of
you guys have to do like 3 shows wherever you get just to like get caught back up.
Right.
Exactly.
Financially.
And 3's good. 3's
right.
Like mostly it's the whole tour catching back up.
Well, awesome, guys. I just want to say thank you for taking the time. I know you guys are back home in New Zealand, and gotta love the internet. Again, new album March 28th. What was the name of it?
Tera.
There we go. And make sure you go and pre-save it on Spotify.
Pre-save, do all the good stuff.
Apple Music and wherever else you listen to your music. All that stuff.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, already in my top 10 of the year.
All day on the phone.
Oh, Lewis, you are
he's so late.
That's good, though. All right, guys. Take care. We will talk soon.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Because I always do things and you guys respond like 10 minutes later.